Alrighty, welcome everybody. Welcome to this special edition of Brownsville Tech Live. And as most of you know, we've been pretty busy doing city commission candidate interviews. We've been doing those since February, and we are down to our last three candidates, and I am relieved that we're at the end of the interview cycle. Believe me, it's been fun, but it's definitely taxing on me as well as the guests sometimes. So tonight I have got the distinct honor and pleasure of having Miss Yvonne Barraza. She's running for City Commissioner for District 3. Yvonne, welcome to the show.
Daniel. Hi, I'm glad to be here. Good evening, neighbors and friends, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak with you tonight. My name is Yvonne Barraza. I was born in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. My dad was in the service, and I am honored to stand before you as a candidate for Brownsville City Commissioner for District 3. Early voting begins April 22nd and continues through April 29th, and Election Day is May the 3rd, 2025. With your support and collaboration, we can work together to build a stronger, more vibrant Brownsville that serves everyone in our community. Before diving into my vision and priorities, I'd like to share a little more about myself because I believe understanding someone's story is essential for establishing trust and learning about their motives. My family's journey is deeply rooted in our area's history and service. My great grandparents, Jose and Virginia Esparza, came from El Ranchito, and they were dedicated to giving back to our community. They donated some land for the church and the school and left a legacy of selflessness and continue to shape my values. My great grandfather contributions were recognized through naming of Jose Esparza Park, and my great grandmother's picture hangs in the Stillman House Museum. Service continues in my family through my grandfather, who was a proud World War II veteran. My father was a Vietnam War veteran, and he also taught at Pace High School. So anybody who went to Pace when my dad was there probably knows my father. My father had a nickname. They used to call him Sparky. He was just a really jolly person, and I really think he was a great teacher. So education and service has been really important to my family, and it's a passion that my family has that is imparted, and they imparted these values to me, shaping the woman I am today. Now, my son carries on the family's proud military tradition as an Army serviceman, and pretty much lots of my cousins are also in the service. So, as someone whose roots run deep in Brownsville, I am committed to honoring my family's legacy by working hard to make meaningful differences in our city. I'm a political science major. My minors were history and criminal justice. So I feel I bring both academic preparation and real world management experience to the table. My background is in business management, and I feel that I'm equipped with the skills to solve complex problems, foster collaboration, and ensure decisions are both fiscally responsible and practical. Practical is really important too. We can wish to fix every street in Brownsville, and I wish we could, but that might not be practical for monetary reasons. I think one thing that's very important is I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. I've learned through serving our neighbors. This has given me a deep understanding the needs that Brownsville needs and what District 3 needs. I've done volunteer work through my little carousel, junior league. My daughter has done fundraising since she was like 3 years old. So I think we've been really actively involved in the community.
All right. And what are you currently married, Miss Barraza?
Yes, I am. I've
You
been
have
married for over 20 something
okay.
years. My husband's a wonderful man, and I'm very fortunate. He's very he's always been there.
Yeah. And you got kids as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I
And
do.
I believe that I think I read that you are in the construction business. Is that true?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right.
We
Yeah.
do remodeling and repairs, restorations.
Okay. All right. Great. Um, which I wanted to kind of jump in and talk a little bit about. I know that in the past we've had some candidates, and boy, the comments are definitely already popping up. Uh, okay, well, we'll jump into the comments in a little bit. Um, I know that in the past we've talked about with the candidates about the cost of housing, obviously, right? The cost of housing has gone up quite a bit. There is a lot of emphasis on trying to find ways to make housing affordable, right? I know that there's programs out there in the community that have tried to go a long way to do that. But I know that affordable housing isn't something necessarily that the city can do on its own. But what do you think we can do to make housing affordable in the city of Brownsville? Not only for those that want to buy a home, but as you know, the average rent is $1,200 for a one-bedroom apartment now here in Brownsville. What do you think we can do to try to make housing affordable for our citizens?
That's a question. That's a very fair question. And I think it is an issue that some people are looking at. I think it's also a tough question because as a city, we don't have so many options available. I know that we do have housing for for some persons. However, it really helps people if you're at the low end of a budget or a low end of the economic scale. I know that when you're middle class or when you have a certain income, it's a lot harder for you. It's like you're not rich, you're not poor, and then you're kind of in the middle and there's no there's not a lot of benefits out there. I think what we need to do is we have to focus and we have to see what's out there in a federal level and what we can bring to our residents in Brownsville to help them out and keep them informed of what's out there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, to be honest with you, I didn't, and we've kind of had this conversation for the last several interviews, but it just hit me last night when I was thinking about this topic about affordable housing and housing in general. And yes, I mean, definitely housing costs have gone up, rental costs have gone up in the city of Brownsville, but they've gone up everywhere, right? They've gone up everywhere. They've gone up everywhere throughout the valley, throughout the state, throughout the city. I mean, throughout the country, excuse me. But maybe the focus needs to be that in addition to finding ways to make things affordable, we need to keep our focus on economic growth, right? Because the only way that someone can afford a nice house, a nice car, right? Potentially take their kids to a school of their choice, whatever the case may be, right? Is for them to make money, right? And quite honestly, for a long time in this city, people made $7.25 an hour. Well, you and I both know that there's just absolutely no way that somebody can live on 7.25 an hour. And we need to do more to encourage economic development. What do I mean by that? Attract industry, right? Additional industries,
Exactly.
right? I mean, we've got SpaceX right now. The average salary down there is $35 an hour, right?
Right.
LNG is another is another factor. So I think that ultimately, while yes, we have to find ways to make living affordable, we really the only way we're going to make living affordable is by increasing economic growth, right? And the only way to do that is to bring jobs and job creators that are going to pay the salaries that are going to allow people to buy those homes, buy those cars. I mean, the average car today is 50 grand. I mean, the average car payment is $900 a
Yeah.
month. Imagine
You know,
that's just crazy, you know?
Daniel, I think that's a really good idea. We do need to find businesses and bring industry to Brownsville. However, we have to take care of the businesses that we have here too,
Right.
because we have businesses here that are struggling. We have owners that are going broke, and it's kind of hard for them, I feel, because we focus so much on bringing new companies in, but we also have to work on what we have here. We need to make sure that our businesses here that have been established can progress and prosper. And if we focus all our energy in bringing something in, what are we going to do about what we have right now? I think that we also have to find opportunities for our youth. Most of the time, our kids go to college, study. If they study somewhere else, then they stay elsewhere.
Right.
And a lot of the times they don't come back and
Right.
they
It's called
just,
the brain drain. It's called the term is called the
yeah.
brain drain. Correct.
But then we have a lot of people from Brownsville that we have a lot of people that are hired in Brownsville that are from somewhere else.
Right.
And it's kind of one of those things where we have to play a balancing game, where we have to kind of balance different issues, businesses, yes, bring businesses in, but help the businesses that are there. See what we can do to get our youth to stay actively involved in Brownsville. I think we have
Now,
to work on everything.
now, one of the things that I know has been a complaint when it comes to business owners, small business owners in the city, is the fact that when there's something going on at eBridge or BCIC, okay, an event, whatever, right? They don't find out about it until after the event's over and done with. And I'm telling you this because it happened to me a few weeks ago. Somebody told me, and I'm in IT, so I'm into technology and stuff like that. Somebody said, "Hey, why haven't you been attending the technology conference that's held down at eBridge every Friday?" I said, "What are you talking about? I didn't even know that was going on." Right? But I've heard the complaint over and over again that small business owners, local business owners, don't necessarily know what's going on. What's offered to them, what's available to them. It almost seems like it's only offered to the ones that are connected, right? So, I mean, what's your take? I mean, what do we need to do to get people more informed about what's available? Because honestly, I don't even know what's
Education.
available.
Education is key. We really have to find a way that we could maybe post information that everybody can look at and they know where to go. I think that public service announcements, next meeting it's going to be held here or there, or, the city could post a lot of more on their activities. Social media seems to be taking over.
It,
And everybody has a social media page, or some type of platform. And they do, they check, they look. I think that would work a lot more than a newspaper, a lot more than, commercial. Social media seems to be something that everybody is looking at nowadays.
yeah, well, one of the things that I recently found out. I mean, I don't know whether it's true or not, right? But one of the local bloggers in town, he's not a podcaster, he's just a blogger, apparently posted something on, I guess, his page that he had received a grant from the city for a writing grant. And I'm like, really? I said, the rest of us who are on the air usually every week didn't even know about that there was a grant. I could have used the money. you know it's just an example of you know finding out that the horse left the barn after the fact. And I think there has to be a better way, and social media definitely is one way of doing it, right? But something definitely needs to be done differently, because you hear the complaints all the time. I didn't know about it, right? Or if I did know about it, I applied and I didn't get it, somebody else did, blah 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 blah. So um, that's one of the things that I think needs to be looked at, right? Is how can we improve communication to local business owners, to small business, to even citizens for just the basic of things, right? So
Living grants, you could have gotten that.
I know. Imagine it was a $10,000 grant.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if it was true or he was just trying to yank my chain, but
Oh, Daniel, what would you want to do with $10,000? Come on.
oh, I've got plenty of ideas.
Okay.
I've got plenty of ideas. But one of the questions that I wanted to talk about was, one of the topics that we talked about yesterday, one of the candidates talked about yesterday was, and you're in construction, do we have a problem when it comes to over regulations and permitting? Because it almost seems that, a lot of people that want to do business in Brownsville complain that it's just difficult to do business in Brownsville. There's just too many rules and regulations that I mean, what's your take? You've been in construction for a long time. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I
Do we have a
have.
problem?
I yes, I do, and I have friends that do the same thing, and they seem to have the same issues. We have one friend in particular that left to San Antonio because it was such a big problem getting permits here. I think that we need to think about creating a more effective and efficient permitting process. I think that's essential to support the growth and development of our city. There's this delays in permits. The approval can hinder vital projects, it discourages investments and frustrates both businesses and residents. I think that we need to address this issue. We need to streamline the system, ensuring that permits are reviewed and approved in a timely manner. But we do need to maintain transparency and accountability through the process. I think that a commissioner has a critical role to play in ensuring the success of the system. I think that by dividing a pending permits among the commissioners, we can encourage faster reviews while at the same time creating an additional layer of oversight. I think all this would kind of help.
Yeah, because I mean, I'll tell you right now that, I experienced a huge problem when it came to having to deal with City Plaza. A few years ago, a couple of years ago, I had a tax business, and I did it for 2 years. And the second year, I got this idea that I wanted to actually move from where I was at to this other area because I kind of calculated there was high traffic count. And so the landlord that built the retail complex apparently had never any plans to rent out any of the retail spots to a restaurant. Well, it so happened that she changed her mind and decided to rent it out to somebody who wanted to start a restaurant. Well, the very first thing that happened was that with a restaurant, you have to have a firewall, right? There was no
Yeah.
firewall built into the building. It was open from point A to point B, right? And as a result of that, we, the rest of us couldn't get a certificate of occupancy. Well,
Yeah.
for me, it was very critical because the tax business is seasonal, which means it starts in January and it ends in April. So I couldn't get a certificate of occupancy. What does that mean? Is that I couldn't even have a single human inside the building, right? So, end result, I lost a ton of money because I was paying rent for free because I wasn't making any money. I couldn't make any money. And the tax business, to be honest with you, is only really the first couple of weeks in January and possibly
Yeah.
February, and then March and April, forget it. There's no business after that. I didn't open until March 1st. So I lost a ton of money, a ton of business. And to top it off, they broke into the retail establishments because Spectrum and AT&T couldn't install internet all the way to the complex because their junction box ended about a block away and they wanted us to pay like 7 grand to have them run the line, right? So
Yeah.
it was a disaster, and you have no idea how many times I spent going back and forth to City Plaza to deal with this issue, to deal with the fire marshal. I mean, it was just horrible. And I've heard the candidate that was on tonight, he's got businesses. He's faced similar issues. It's just very difficult to do business down there.
Yeah, we need to figure out a way to, get rid of this bottleneck that we have. We need to make the city a little bit more accessible to the public. We need, I don't know, more communication. We need to foster communication between city authorities and the applicants. We need to find a way to reduce this bottleneck. And I really think that if we do break the districts down and give each commissioner like a show or some information, a backlog, they might be able to create a little bit more, we'll put more attention to what's going on. Because sometimes it feels useless to be calling the city because you feel it's falling on deaf's ear. So, and
Yeah,
losing money is difficult for anybody. Nobody
right,
wants to lose money.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
nobody wants to lose money, and especially when you're just paying rent for free, right? And
exactly.
so and I want to talk a little bit about I know that you're running for District 3, which downtown is not part of District 3, but I've asked this question to just about everybody, and I wanted to get, your take on it. This past Charo Days, we had a pretty large sombrero fest, quite large compared to past previous years. In fact, there was over 10,000 people that Thursday night. And of course, you hear the complaints all the time about that there's not enough parking down there, that it's too congested. And of course, some people have advocated to move Sombrero Fest over to the sports park versus keeping it down at Washington Park. I mean, what's your take? Should we consider moving Sombrero Fest, or do we need to find a way to be a little bit smarter how we deal with parking? Because quite honestly, there's a lot of downtown homeowners out there that are taking advantage of this situation and charging a ton of money for parking during that time. So what's your take on
Yeah.
that?
Well, I think that Sombrero Fest is a tradition, and I think that keeping it there enables people afterwards to maybe go downtown,
Right.
have meals at the local restaurants. It's once a year, and yes, it's the restrooms. That's the big thing for me, Daniel. That's one of the reasons why I consider, should I go or should I stay home? Because of the restrooms.
Right.
I think that we need to just kind of organize ourselves a little bit more. There's so many buildings around the park where we have it that we should probably find a way to just to make it easier and accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
There's parking lots. There is parking. It's just a little bit hard. I think that maybe we should consider selling tickets online a little bit more to, maintain ourselves with a certain capacity. But I really don't think we ought to move it. It's tradition. It's one of those
Right.
things, the parade, everything is downtown.
Well, one of the things that I tossed out there, not that I have any inside information whatsoever, but I've tossed it out to a few candidates, is if PuteNet one day was closed, and I'm not advocating to close the school, okay?
Let's
That's
see.
not
You want to close pew now.
no, 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 no. I'm not wanting to. I'm just saying if the opportunity arises, right, where PuteNet is considered for closure, would it be a possible good idea to look at purchasing PuteNet and increasing Washington Park space?
I believe it would be an excellent option. It's something that, it's a tradition. If they had the extra space, they could just, oh, everything would be so much easier. It's a
Right.
space, finding the space and planning. So much work goes into planning for Sombrero Fest. Last year, that mariachi that was leaned over in a chair, and people argued if he was drunk or tired. After Sombrero Fest this year, I could see where that picture came from. I don't think I had volunteered as much for Sombrero
I
Fest as I
remember
did
that
this
picture.
year.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a true statement of how tired you are after the whole event.
I mean, now whether BISD would sell PuteNet to us for 11 million like they did Cummings is another
I mean,
story, right? I think they probably regret selling it for so cheap, but anyway, it's just a thought, but I agree with you when it comes to Sombrero Fest. I believe that despite the complaints, it still needs to be at the park, at Washington Park, because you're right. I mean, it's tradition, number one, but it also provides an opportunity to get people to um, go down to downtown, to go eat at the
yes.
restaurants, to support the bars, and to maybe go read a book. I mean, there's an opportunity down there to get people back to downtown. I'll be honest with you. I'm really impressed with the development that has occurred downtown. I mean, I didn't used to go to downtown. To be honest with you, I still don't much. But believe me, the last few times that I've driven down there and looked at what has opened, it kind of makes me want to go visit, right? Now we do have
Wow.
some issues, right? We have some issues down there where we have still quite a few homeless people. Um, There was somebody complaining,
Lighting.
huh?
You could be a little bit better too.
Right,
The
right.
lighting,
The
it's getting
lighting,
better, but it's still a little dark and
right.
it's
And then of
kind of,
course they say that it's in some areas it kind of stinks, right? So
I
there
don't
has
want to say that.
right, but
Don't say that, Daniel.
well, you know what I'm saying. It's part of the
Yes,
homeless problem, right? It's part of the homeless problem,
exactly.
right? So you know, but definitely I believe that the best place at this point is still at Washington Park. I don't believe that the sports park, and we know that facility is underutilized. I don't believe that it would have the same feel, in my opinion. And I think it would be a further distance from a lot of people that live downtown and possibly live down on South Most to be able to enjoy that, you know.
To agree with you. I think that, we've always had it at Washington Park. It's tradition. It's something that people look forward to every year. And I think that changing the venue and where you're having it would really impact the whole Sombrero Fest as a whole. We're
Right,
used to going down there. Just need to make it better.
right, right. I know that District 3, recently there was some flooding issues, and I believe that I saw a business owner complain that I guess one of his businesses had a pipe burst or something. I can't remember, you know. But you know, you talked a lot about drainage. You know, what can we do to improve the drainage? I understand that there's not a whole lot that we can do with Boca Chica, right? Because that's a state highway. That's a state responsibility, right? And despite their best efforts to fix Boca Chica, it almost seems like it hasn't really improved much. It still floods, right? But with regards to
Yeah.
District 3, what do you think we can do to increase to fix some of the streets down there?
To fix the streets, that's something that's really important. Some of the streets here really need work. I know, for example, Old Alice, that street it's been repaired, but the type of repairs that are done last for what, one rainy season, and they're pretty much gone. Roads are a tough one because roads can be so expensive. And since I'm in construction, I see the way that they fix these potholes. And then I kind of compare that to the way we're supposed to fix them. And it's a big waste of money. It's a big, what they do to fix the potholes is just, we kind of need to work on that a little bit. As far as the drainage goes, drainage is going to be an issue that we need to look at seriously. And I'm really proud of John Cowan. And, the whole city of Brownsville seems to have gotten really involved with that. I went out to the Tradition Estates meeting and everybody's concerned, which is good. It's good that we're all working collectively. We need to do that in order to keep that going. But I kind of feel that Brownsville was built on an irrigation zone. So we don't really have all this drainage options. We have pumps. We need to make sure that the pumps are running when they need to be running. But we also need to think of what we can do to help our residents if there's an emergency. If there's one of those 10-year storms, we need to be ready. And it seems like we're not really ready at this moment. Back, was it in September when we had that downpour? We
Right,
had a lot of streets that were flooded. We had a lot of issues, and most of Brownsville was underwater. Now, if we luckily, nobody lost their life, and I mean, losing physical property is terrible, but losing a life, it's not acceptable.
right,
And I think that the response time was a little bit slow. And I think we need to be more reactive when things like this happen.
right. Well, I'll give you
It's, it, it's,
yeah, I'll give you an example.
uh-huh,
One of my pet peeves. I'll give you an example. Right there at the corner of Pablo Quisel and Morrison, right before you get to the PetSmart and the Target. I don't know how many times they've tried to fix that piece. There's just a small piece, the entrance, pothole after pothole after pothole. And all we do, we just go back and cover it up, cover it up, and cover it up, all to come back a few weeks later and do the same thing all over again.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it
I
doesn't
I
make any
hear you.
sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's just like,
Right.
why don't we just concrete that section if it's because I don't know what causes that. It's only that little section. It's not the whole street. It's just that section right there for whatever reason, you know.
Yeah. I would put it out, add a little bit of lime, make sure everything's compressed and they're using the right subgrades, then maybe it lasts a little bit longer. But if you just pour caliche and then you pour asphalt, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Well, it's kind of funny. Sometimes I don't know if you've seen the sometimes the memes that get posted with regards to road construction, and they have a picture of a Roman road that was built by the Romans 2,000 years ago, and then they have a picture of of a city street today, and the Roman road looks better than the city street does. It's kind of
Yeah.
funny. But hopefully that can definitely get fixed, no doubt about it, because it seems like we just go over and keep on just putting a band-aid every single time, and we just don't fix the problem once and for all. So I want to talk a little bit. I know that you're running for District 3, but obviously you are one of 5 or 6 votes on the commission. I can't recall. I lose track of how many commissioners and the mayor comprise of. I think it's what, 6 or 7. I can't remember.
You have two at large, you have four district, and then you have the mayor.
Okay, so
So
it's what?
altogether, that would be seven.
Right. So you're going to be
District
one,
one, two, three, four, A and B, and then mayor.
right. But of course, when it comes to voting, you're going to be one vote out of 7, right? And you'll be voting
Exactly.
not just for district issues, but you're going to be voting for non-district issues as well, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what a lot of people don't understand, even though you're voting for your particular representative on the city commission, they're still going to get to vote on potentially bigger issues than just district issues. So I want to talk about 2 particular issues that I've brought up in the past. One is, of course, the airport. Uh, there is no doubt that we have an issue when it comes to getting people to fly Brownsville.
Yeah,
Um, you
we
know,
do.
I've heard. I used to work in McAllen for a while, and they even would kind of pick at me and say, "Oh, y'all have an airport?" I was like, "Really? You people are that?"
Isn't that crazy?
I
It's
mean, it's
been there
crazy, right?
forever.
But
Right.
we have a problem, right? We have a problem, and I don't know if it's a marketing problem or what, but we seem to be getting our lunch eaten by the other airports. Now, in fairness, let's be honest. There is no doubt that Southwest is big in Harlingen. In fact, they are the biggest contributor to their total employments on a per year basis. If you look at the total employments per year in Harlingen, the majority of those are through Southwest. Delta, American, and United are much less. In fact, the numbers for United and Delta are much lower than they are for Brownsville, right? But they still service not only us, they service Harlingen, they service McAllen, right, as well. But there's been attempts in the past to bring in ultra low cost carriers. We started off with Allegiant, right? That served the city under the old terminal back a few years ago, and that was here for I think maybe less than a year, and I'm not sure what happened there. But then recently we had a Velo, right? And apparently the excuse that they gave was that there was no business demand. I'm not sure if I buy that story because now looking at Avello and their business model, that's the going up into a city and then leaving the city seems to be a standard practice for them. So I'm not really sure that there was demand. Now, people complained, right? They complained that, well, you can fly for $49, but then if you want something to drink or eat, the pretzels and the Coke is going to cost you more. And if for some reason you want a pillow and a blanket, that's going to cost you for more. And of course, they charge for bags. Well, guess what? Now everybody charges for bags, including Southwest. So that's not
Yes,
even an issue.
everybody.
Everybody does.
You know,
I mean,
you
Southwest was
know,
the last one not to charge, but they couldn't resist, right? I mean, what do
yeah.
you think we need to do? Is it a marketing problem? I mean, I know that the prices of flights between Brownsville and Harlingen, they say that Brownsville's are slightly more expensive than Harlingen's. What's your take? I mean, is it a marketing problem? What is it that we can do to increase traffic to the airport?
That's what I would like to do. I think that we do need an advertising campaign like Fly Brownsville. But you know what, Daniel? I really would love to bring Southwest to Brownsville or another major airline. And I know it'd be kind of tough, but we need to see what we could do to give them some sort of incentive to come in and stay here. I was kind of looking around, and what I understand is that there's not a lot of specialized places for maintenance and repairs. I think that these are commonly referred to as aircraft maintenance zones or repair stations,
Hmm.
a maintenance, repair, or overhaul facility. And I think these facilities could perform essential tasks to ensure safety, efficiency, and operational readiness of a craft. If we could offer some incentive, of course, governed by FAA, the regulations like the Part 145, these repair stations could actually encourage airlines to stay here. Encompassing hangars, repair bays, and specialized technical stations with certified technicians to carry out the maintenance and repairs and inspections of aircraft systems and components. I think we could maybe have them come to Brownsville. I understood that these stations are more likely found in Houston or in Mexico, but they don't have anything like that in the valley. So it'd be great. That would actually be extra revenue for the airport as a whole to be able to service these planes. So maybe we could use this as an airport, some sort of hangar station for airplane maintenance, and convince a major airline to come down here.
Yeah. Now, what's your take on international destinations? Do you think that we could, I mean, keep in mind that Harlingen had air service to Mexico and it failed, right? It didn't last. McAllen's been the only one that's been a lot more successful when it comes to air service to Mexico. But do you think we could handle air service to Mexico? Would there be a demand, considering that the other problem that we have is we do have Matamoros and Reynosa that have their own flights down there, and a lot of times they're a lot cheaper, right? Do you
I
think
think
that?
that would be an issue. I don't think that we would be able to compare with the airfare that they would find taking a plane from Mexico. I think that would make it a little bit more difficult.
Mhm.
We could try to find ways, and I know to some people it'd be more convenient to take a plane here than have to go to Matamoros. With Matamoros, there's like safety issues, and
Right.
this way you get straight over there. But I
Yeah,
think
I
that
mean,
right now,
I can tell you that it's been years since I even crossed the border to Matamoros, and I used to go there all the time. I mean, when
yeah,
I was younger, right? I'm not going to tell you what I did, but I used to go there quite
I don't think you should tell us.
a bit.
But later on, maybe everybody will start comparing stories of what they did as a teen in
We
Matamoros.
probably could. At least those of us of a certain age could. Kids
Sure,
today have
remember?
no idea, right? But
Exactly.
but certain of us, we could have some stories. We could probably write books along the way.
Right? Right. Books.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, it will be kind of tough, right, to compete against Matamoros and Reynosa, right? And it I we know that, I think it was Vivo Aerobus. Was it Vivo Aerobus? I think that serviced Harlingen. They weren't there for more than 6 months. Now I know that Sun Country has a seasonal flight to Cancun, and I don't know how long that does. I mean, when I think of Sun Country, I think it's a plane full of snowbirds, right? But that's not necessarily true. I shouldn't say that, right? Because it's not just
We
snowbirds,
have
but
more. I really think that if we have those maintenance repair shops, we would attract other airlines
yeah,
and maybe it'd be possible. However, individuals would be willing, this would work for individuals willing to pay a little bit more money.
yeah.
And yeah,
Well, we do have a small little airline that has flights down to Monterrey, right? They I think they have a flight every day. Now, for a lot of people that don't know, there was a lot of criticism about that airline, primarily because the planes were small, right? Extremely small. But the way I see it, you probably will survive that a crash in that small airplane before you do on a jet. But that's another story. But one of the things that people don't know about that airline is that they have on order, I don't know how many aircraft with Embraer. Embraer is the Brazilian manufacturer of airplanes, and they manufacture the RJ-175s and the 190s that fly back and forth out of here. Well, they're going to be the first airline to actually sport an all electric airplane, all electric.
Interesting. Would you use an all-electric airplane?
Well, I got to get used to driving an all electric car. I don't own one, but I had the opportunity to get into a Cadillac recently, and
Okay.
it was kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know, right? I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to see how that would work. But they are the first airline on the planet that has on order. I don't know how many airplanes. Irus is the name of the company that they're going to sport a all electric airplane. So it'll be kind of interesting to watch. So, and the planes are much bigger. Those planes on order are much bigger. So maybe people will change their minds. I mean, all electric, yeah, maybe it'll reach
Mhm.
Monterrey without a problem. Mexico City, well, maybe not, but who knows, right? So, all right. Well, enough about the airport. So I want to talk about another topic, and if you've seen some of the other podcasts, I've brought it up each and every time. As you well know, this past year, UTV RGV announced that for graduating students from UTRGV here in Brownsville, they would no longer be holding commencement here in Brownsville. The students and their families would have to go all the way to Edinburgh to graduate. Right? And then we also found out by accident that, our own Sam Stadium, when it came to hosting a playoff game, was inadequate, not only in seating, but also in parking. Parking's always been a problem down there, right? But
Yes.
it just became evident that we don't have a facility large enough to handle some of these big events. And as you know, 2 years ago or so, the county made an attempt, not once but twice, to
Yes.
build an arena or try to build an arena, and it was voted down twice. Not by a whole lot, even though the anti-arena folks like to say they won unanimously. No, it was just by a few votes. It was not much, but end result, and the argument was that that our property taxes were going to go up and our property values were going to go up. And of course, what I say to that is they went up anyway, and we still
They
don't
went up
have an
anyway.
right. We don't have an arena. We don't have any kind of facility, and the excuse that our UTRGV gave is because we don't have anything, right? But beyond that, beyond not having anything, there is another side to this problem, and it is a problem. It's what I call the money drain that occurs anytime there is a concert or a monster truck event or a Disney on Ice. People from Cameron County, from the city of Brownsville, from Harlingen, from San Benito, travel to Hidalgo to and go and spend their money there. Not only do they spend their money
Exactly.
at a concert, they go and spend their money at their restaurants. And not only do they go spend their money at their restaurants, they go spend their money at their mall. Not only do they go spend their money at their mall, but if they're too tipsy or too tired, they'll stay at their hotel and they'll pay their hot tax, right? So you
Exactly.
have all these complaints that our sales tax revenue in Brownsville has been low compared to the other cities in Hidalgo. Well, yeah, when everybody is going over there and spending their money, how could the sales tax revenue not be lower, right? And of course, the lack of not having a facility is contributing to this money drain that occurs all the time. And
Right.
I'm not saying that it's a city responsibility. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it should be the city's responsibility to fund a facility. I'm it obviously is the county's responsibility, but one of the things that I've talked about in the last few interviews is that maybe it should be a collective effort, right? Where the county leads the effort, the city of Brownsville supports the effort in some form. And you know what? Let's reach out to rich billionaires sitting 27 miles away, right?
Mr.
Let's
Musk.
let's let's reach out to private business because
Exactly.
Elon wanted to buy a soccer team about a year ago. Well, you know what? what better place to relocate a soccer team than the soccer capital of the world, which is Brownsville, Texas? Everybody knows that we've got the best high school soccer players in the entire country, right? So I personally believe we need a facility. What's your take? Do we need a facility, or is it just too expensive? I mean, what's your take?
Honesty, Mr. Musk actually put us on the global map. I think it's something that we do have to plan. It's a project that, it needs to be well thought out. An arena, it's not just a construction project. It's going to require thoughtfulness to ensure that it can support itself. There's maintenance involved, operations, event management, before we move forward, they have to kind of think about that. It's not just making an arena and here you go, let's start having concerts. I think we have to see the big picture, and it will take some planning and, there has to be some strategies involved in order to make this financially sustainable. I am all for the arena. I think that as a city, and I'm hoping if this is something that's done with the county, if we're working collectively with the county, it would really benefit to have it close to Brownsville because, like you said, people go to McAllen to see a concert, then they go shopping, they go out to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the times they stay there, they're too tired to drive home. So I really believe the arena is worth serious consideration. I think it prevents an opportunity to enhance our community and generate income benefits. Funding the project, like you mentioned before, is not something that's really going to go out of the taxpayers' money. This is going to be built through the hot taxes, and people are already paying when they stay in motels, or I'm sorry, hotels. So travelers are generating this income to begin with.
Right.
Taxes went up. I don't think it would really be a financial burden on our community if it's done. And having an arena could boost economic activities, particularly by attracting events, tourisms, and business opportunities. I think that this is a county issue, and I strongly hope they choose Brownsville as a location to put the arena. That way, the benefits of the arena would be seen in our community.
Yeah, I think that originally it was going to be located right next to the Madeira project, right?
Yeah.
Because I think one of the ideas, it was kind of like a middle point, right, between the cities. And at the time, during the last vote, there was a concern that some of the other cities would not, go for it, right? And in fact, San Benito had a competing. It wasn't an arena what they were building. They were building something much smaller. It was in fact a private developer, and it turned out to be a flop because I don't think they ever built it. And I think now there's all kinds of legalities going on with that whole planned development. I don't think it's going to happen, but that was another thing. You hear some people that were against it and say, well, why should we have one when San Benito's building something similar? And then, of course, the Harlingen Convention Center. But once again, those facilities, just like the event center here in Brownsville, are can't really hold a decent event. In fact, I used to work in McAllen. I used to work for South Texas College, and we used to have events down at the McAllen Convention Center, which is a slightly bigger convention center. It looks big, but if you really look at it from top to bottom, you find out that it's really not that much big. But anyway, we used to have these uh, college events down there for employees, and I think it was like 2,000 employees. We couldn't fit in the main hallway that they just opened up from point to point. That's at
Yeah,
that convention center. I
uh,
mean, if you've been to
exactly.
Comic Con, oh my God. I don't know if you've been to Comic Con, but I mean, it's just packed like sardines. You
Yeah.
know? So,
The whole prospect of building the arena, it's exciting. I would
yeah,
just say that my concern lies in the right planning and
right,
strategies to set the strategies in place to ensure that it's successful and sustainable in the long term.
right, right. Yeah, because I definitely want to see Chiquita one day here locally.
Here in Brownsville. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about SpaceX a little bit. I'll make it no secret. I am a big supporter of SpaceX. I think most of y'all know that. I have been accused at times of being Elon's cheerleader locally, and I'm not. And just for clarification, he does not pay me and he does not fund this show. So just I want to get that clarified once and for all
Yes.
because that seems to be a rumor that just circulates all the time, you know. But that's all right. They can believe what they want. Now, believe me, if Elon wants to make a donation, I'll be more than happy to take it. Trust me. But obviously, SpaceX is our largest employer now. One of our largest employers. They employ over 3,500 employees now. And it appears that they're here for the long term, right?
Yes.
Elon has plans to launch up to 25 launches here from Boca Chica on an annual basis. And overall, his plans are to launch over 100 rockets a year, both out of Starbase and out of the Cape in Florida. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was obviously, there are some people that are for SpaceX, and there's a lot of people that are against SpaceX. In fact, there's been some unfortunate behavior in this city when it comes to showing their displeasure, from spray painting murals with four-letter words, and of course, going out to private property, primarily their fences, and saying four-letter words to SpaceX, Elon, and even the former mayor.
Yeah.
And of course, recently, somebody spray painted the private mural that somebody made over there at the Elizondo building, right? And I, I know who's doing it, right? It's no secret who's doing it. But this isn't behavior that I believe that our citizens should be demonstrating, right? Especially to our largest employer. But I get more discouraged when I don't see our leadership make any comments whatsoever. It's almost like nobody wants to say anything, right? They don't want to. Is this behavior that should be tolerable? I mean, I know somebody almost went to jail, right? A few years ago over this. I mean, this is just not behavior that we should be doing because not only that, okay, and I've talked about this in the last. We have a problem in the city with negative Nancy's. Okay.
Yes.
We have a lot of negative Nancy's in this city. And what drives me up the wall is when I see northern journalists come down to Brownsville and they write this article and they say that Brownsville is the poorest city in the country. Okay. Well, anybody who's ever traveled north of Corpus Christi can tell you that we're not the poorest city in the country. In fact, if you go to places in Appalachia, down in the deep south, you will find poor. You will find towns that are ghost towns. They have absolutely no industry whatsoever. You go to Chicago in the inner cities, and you literally have poor. You can even go to Houston at the Fifth Ward, and you're going to see poor. But I get very discouraged when writers write this. And of course, we can't do anything about them writing it. But we sure need to have the negative Nancy's stop the marketing of this bad press for the city of Brownsville, right? And it's the same thing with SpaceX. This behavior is just outrageous. Do you think we have an education problem? Do people just not understand the benefits that are happening around the city? I mean, it's just unfortunate that for every two steps we move forward, it seems somebody wants to drag us back one step back. I mean, what's your take? I mean, first of all, should our city leaders be more forthright and tell these people, you know what, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. Um,
Yes. I think that in a way, Elon Musk put us on the map globally.
right,
I think that we have more opportunities with SpaceX here than we do without them. Just, and employment alone, I think he has like 3,000 employees there.
right,
80% of the population are from Brownsville.
right,
Um, I think that we need to see like the big picture. I know that a lot of people concentrate on the environment and long-term problems that we could have, but they've been doing this in Florida. You have had spaceship launches in Florida. Um, I think in a way, if we look at everything that's going on, you have people that go out to the beach and they're more caring about it. They're out there cleaning where before people wouldn't pay so much attention to it.
Right?
I remember going out there a couple of times and I remember bottles. Do you remember the cans before where you'd open them and you'd have to pop up the little top
Right?
and they'd be all over the floor or diapers? And it seems like that's it's a lot less now.
Yes, in
So
fact, that's my argument, right? Is that and I've got this thing that I keep on repeating. I know people get mad at me when I say it, but and excuse the word that I'm going to use, but quite honestly, people didn't give a shit about Boca Chica Beach before SpaceX. It was all about broken beer bottles, rusted fish hooks, dirty diapers, and on occasion an abandoned car, all for students to have to clean
yes,
up after their mess
yes,
on beach cleanup day. And the other thing is Boca Chica Beach today is cleaner today than it has before SpaceX because now we have federal oversight, we have environmental oversight, and we have SpaceX also, um, overlooking things. It is cleaner today. And you're right. In Florida, they've been launching rockets for 60 years, and not a single alligator and not a single manatee has ever been lost in 60 years. So I think, look, I love turtles, okay? I don't want anybody to get the idea that I don't like sea turtles. I like turtles in general. I have one here. It's not a sea turtle, but it's a freshwater turtle, okay? I don't I understand the issue about the ocelots, but I have two cats that act like ocelots. So believe me, I understand their concern, right? But I don't believe that what we're going to see here is SpaceX is no Monsanto. Okay, Monsanto was a chemical company that back in Houston, outside of Pearland, dumped all kinds of chemicals into this area that eventually became a residential neighborhood. I don't know if you've heard about it. It was in the news. I think it
yeah.
was on 2020. And these
And
people
then
bought
you
these
had,
homes
mhm,
and they had abandoned them, right? SpaceX is no Monsanto, you know.
right.
So,
The issue though is if we have this opportunity and if we didn't go out and vandalize so much, then maybe somebody could actually sit and speak to Mr. Musk
yeah,
and see how we could work together. Now, I
exactly.
know there's road issues. One of the big issues that I hear is, they want to close the beach. Um, I think we can always work together. We can be a good neighbor. It's a different municipality. It's something completely different than Brownsville. One of the things that I've heard a lot of people talk about is what if there was a natural disaster? What if there was someone who was sick and they needed to go to the hospital? They don't have hospitals there. They don't have ambulances. What would happen then? If there was a natural disaster, for example, in the port of Brownsville, Brownsville has two hospitals, but they're both level 3 hospitals, which means that they can provide limited care. They can diagnose, they can provide limited care. But a level 1 hospital would be in McAllen, the South Texas hospital. Maybe we could consider instead of, worrying so much about the ambulance, maybe get some sort of air ambulance so that if anyone had a natural disaster, some sort of a bad experience, they could just be taken by ambulance to McAllen.
Right. Well, one of the things, and let's talk a little bit about Starbase Incorporation, right? There, I
Mhm.
know that some people are upset because they feel that you know uh, Starbase is that they don't have a say in whether Starbase gets incorporated into a city. But then there's been a group out there in the last couple of weeks that say, well, incorporation is going to make Brownsville lose money. And my argument there is if you're talking about people going down to Starbase to live, there's not a whole lot of land out there. The reason why Elon Musk wants to incorporate Starbase is to have a little bit more control over manufacturing and additional launchpad capability. Yes, are they building executive homes? Yes, they are. But we're not talking about full residential down there, at least not at Starbase, right? Uh, but there's not a whole lot of space. What Elon is focused on is to increase his manufacturing capability. Right now, they started tearing down the two high bays because they're planning to build a gigabay. The gigabay will allow them to build up to three rockets, I think, on a per week basis. And that is to keep up with his launch schedule. Same thing with the launch pads. So I I still believe that residential wise, we're still going to benefit from Starbase Incorporation because they're still going to need places to live, whether it's in Brownsville, whether it's San Benito, whether it's Harlingen. I definitely think the island will probably benefit quite a bit, right? Because he could
Yeah.
easily put a ferry back and forth for employees and so forth. But I don't buy the argument that we're going to lose because they incorporate. I mean, what's your take?
I don't see how we'd lose either because they're not part of Brownsville. They're actually they're in the county. It's a county issue, not so much a municipality issue. I think they would be their own municipality. I think that there are little things that need to get straightened out. For example, if there's an emergency. Of course, the beach, closing off the beach, but I think that they're in an area, and I think that they're bringing more good than bad. I
Yeah,
think they're helping our economy, and they're making us know, they're putting us on the map, really.
right. And that's one of the things that I try to argue is that, we've got to be realistic. Elon could have picked anywhere
Any
to have
place.
launched his rockets,
Yes.
right? But he picked us. He
Hmm.
picked us. And not only that, every single time a rocket launches from Starbase, that is a testament to our workforce. Our workforce is exceptional. We can build anything. We can build anything from small little widgets to interplanetary vehicles. It is a testament to what our local workforce can do. And it is something that tells any other company wanting to relocate and set up operations here in the area that we can do this, that we can build anything from the smallest thing to the greatest things. And yes, we have been placed on the map. And so we need to think different. We need to get rid of this small town mentality, right? I mean, we are a small town, right? We're not big, 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 but we're not that small either. But it seems like we've just want to stay in the past for whatever reason. I don't know. I
No,
just
Daniel, but a lot of this, you go back to those negative Nancy's. Brownsville has so much to offer. We have museums, we have parks, we have trails, we have the mall. It's just got so much. We're close to a port, we're close to the beach, we have an airport. You cross a bridge, you can go to Mexico. We have so much to offer. We have a peaceful, little town. And if you look around, it's beautiful. If you go down the simplest street, Central Boulevard, if you go down Central Boulevard and just look around, it's a really pretty city. You have grass, you have plants, everything is just so pretty. It's just that we need to take into consideration that we need to make it better. What we have is very good to begin with. We have to be content with what we have and work on making it better by working collectively, not negatively, and not let things
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, we're not going to get very far by spray painting murals and being
Right.
disrespectful. If we want a voice and a place at the table, we've got to act like responsible adults. And that is something that unfortunately the Sierra Club and their little minions have not done over the last 2 years. They have acted like kindergartners doing all kinds of stuff to try to cause ruckus, and it's just not the right thing to do. If we want a seat at the table, we're going to have to act like responsible adults, in my opinion. And you know what? I think we need to move on to another topic because there's a few of the viewers that are
We could
are
talk all day about
are beating me up over
Starbucks.
the fact
Yeah.
we're talking too much about Elon.
Okay.
With regards to, and I want to talk about this a little bit, and it has to do with some of the events that have happened over the last few months, particularly in Los Fresnos. There's been a lot of
Okay.
immigration raids. Um, the city of McAllen went so far as to say that their local law enforcement would not, under any circumstances, assist the federal government in any immigration or ICE raids. What is your take with regards? Now, keep in mind that we do benefit from federal funds, right, and so forth, and we're dependent
Right.
on federal funds. But What is your take? Should the city of Brownsville take the similar position as McAllen has and basically say that our law enforcement should not participate in ICE raids?
Immigration undoubtedly is a touchy and complex subject, but it's one that deeply impacts Brownsville due to our proximity to Mexico. We're just a hop, skip, and a jump away. But immigrants, we have to remember human beings, and it's crucial that we approach this issue with a humanitarian perspective. I think we need to weigh everything together, but we need to be compassionate also. I think that because of our location, we're so close to Mexico, immigration is an every present reality that shapes the fabric of our community. I think that with Brownsville, our Hispanic population is what is it 90%,
Something like that.
95%?
Right.
Yeah, so we have to be really careful about this, especially, it's important to avoid profiling or discrimination in addressing immigration challenges. And I think our police officers and sheriff deputies should remain focused on the core responsibilities of law enforcement. I really think that they need to work on maintaining the safety and well-being of our community. I think that shifting their focus to immigration matters could distract them from the primary mission and weaken their abilities to really protect our community and serve all residents effectively. I think immigration is a federal issue, and I firmly believe we should let the government manage and handle immigration policies and enforcement. At the same time, as a community, we really need to continue to uphold a humanitarian perspective, ensuring that everyone is treated, with dignity and respect. Balancing law enforcement with compassion will allow us to preserve the values that define Brownsville, fostering unity and understanding in the face of complex issues.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, the responsibility ultimately is the federal government's, right? That
Yes.
it while while we have the presence of immigrants here locally, but it's really a federal problem, right? Um,
Yes, it
and
is.
I don't believe that our local law enforcement have enough resources as it is to actually handle that extra load, right? So, um, it's just, the concern I know that some of the other candidates have expressed is the fear of losing federal funds, right? If we don't cooperate, right? Um, so that's one of the concerns there, obviously. Um, so I wanted to ask you just a question in general. What makes Yvonne Barraza different um, than maybe some of your opponents, and what do you think makes you different than anybody else that has served before? Um,
My parents, my grandparents, my children all have this one trait where we want to help our community. We have this passion in serving our community and being out there and helping them. I believe that I myself, I'm a nonpartisan person. I would vote on an issue. I had a question once. One thing that I was asked: Are you conservative or are you liberal? And it's really about working together. It's not about, who's. I mean, I hear this. It's like, do you align with a conservative or liberal principle? And, this is a race for city commissioner. It's a nonpartisan race. And my goal is really to represent, everyone, to
right,
represent our residents at District 3,
right,
regardless of their political affiliation. I don't focus, on labels. I rather focus on solutions. And I believe in the importance of unity over division
right.
and
Now,
working collectively.
now, as you know, it's no secret that there's been office holders in the past who have had a very contentious relationship with the constituents they serve, right? Uh, and obviously that obviously has led sometimes to shouting matches, right? And not just at the city level, but at the county level, right? What will you do to ensure that it doesn't get to that point, right? I mean, obviously we don't want to accept people just to be rude or anything like that on both sides, right? But will you make a pledge today that you're going to do everything possible to be responsive to your constituents, and not only that, to be accessible to your constituents, because there's some city commissioners currently and past that were accessible and some that just aren't. And so, will you make a pledge that you'll be accessible, that you'll have a phone number they can call or an email address they can send something to, and you
I
promise
can
not to
pledge to
block them from social media in case they don't agree with you at times.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
I can pledge to listen to all voices in our community and seek common grounds as we work to improve Brownsville for everyone. And my philosophy is simple. Unidos hacemos Brownsville más fuerte. Together, we can make Brownsville stronger. And I think it's not just saying it, I think it's living it. Sometimes one of the things that I see is that people don't listen. It's one of those things that people start taking aside and they want to prove their point, that they start arguing about something and then they don't even know what they're arguing about.
Or they
We all
forget
have the
they
same
forget they
common,
know what they're arguing,
yeah.
right?
We have a common goal. We want Brownsville to prosper. We want it to, we want it to move forward. So we need to work together. Sometimes you might need to talk a little softly. Sometimes you need to, concentrate on what you're saying, but you have to respect people and you have to listen. I think that a lot of issues can be resolved if you would just kind of listen and take everybody's idea into consideration. Everybody's important. Everybody wants, to offer something. And if we're in this race, we're in this race because we want to make a difference. So we have to respect them and we have to see what we can do to help our city move forward.
Right. And how has faith, and this is a tough question for some candidates to express themselves with regards to this topic. I usually ask the question, how has faith played a role in your own personal journey, and how do you think it'll play as you seek elected office?
Say I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, and I believe in the Holy Spirit. I think that's something that's very important to me. I think that the Bible is, pretty much a handbook of daily living. It kind of tells you what the rules are and how to live your life. I think that, if you get to people that you can't get through, sometimes it's time to dust your feet off and move on. But you have to be respectful. And that's something that I'm a religious person, but I am very respectful. I don't discriminate about people. I don't discriminate. I try to work with people, and I think that my Christianity has helped me to survive different challenges that I've had in my life
Hmm.
and to move forward. And I'm not embarrassed to say I'm a Christian and I believe in God.
Yeah. Well, one thing I believe that we forget a lot of times is that, if you look through the Bible, right, and you read through the Bible, one of the things you find out is that a lot of times God used imperfect people to move his will, right?
Yes.
Whether it was David, obviously having outside relationships, King Solomon. You had, Saul. You had Saul that was a persecutor and did all
Yes.
kinds of crimes. So
Paul.
yeah, Paul, Saul that
Uh-huh.
became Paul.
Yes,
So
Paul.
you know, in a lot of ways, the church is a hospital, right? Jesus said that, he came to help the sick, right? Right?
Yes.
And so, and we all make mistakes, right? We all make mistakes. We all have at some point in our lives, but we have to remember that, you know, um, we there is redemption, right? There is redemption. God allows redemption, and so yeah, I mean, I think faith is important for. I think the question is an important question to ask all anybody who runs for elected office. I'm not saying that you expect them to be like go completely crazy, right, and pass stuff that may not agree with everybody, but I think faith is a guiding principle when it comes to how you serve, your community. So,
I believe so too.
yeah. All righty. Any closing comments that you want to convey to the public that you've been dying to express and haven't had an opportunity? It's you're free to give your closing
There's a
thoughts.
lot going around on social media, but not everything that you read is true. In order to run for a candidacy with the city, you have to be free of felonies. You have to, have a certain moral character, and they do check. Not not just anyone can run.
Right.
But in conclusion, I would like to say, my neighbors, I am running for city commissioner because I believe in Brownsville. I believe Brownsville deserves thoughtful, engaged, and focused leadership anchored in service and guided by the principles of unity. Service this Serving this community is not just a responsibility, it's a privilege, and it's a continuation of my family's legacy of giving back. I am ready to listen, learn, and act decisively on your behalf. As early voting begins on April 22nd, I humbly ask for your support to help me represent District 3. Together, we can create a city that celebrates our shared history, fosters opportunities for all, and paves the way towards a brighter future. United, we can make Brownsville stronger, more prosperous, and more inclusive for future generations. Thank you for your time and your commitment to our community. Vote Yvonne Barraza for City Commissioner District 3. Unidos hacemos Brownsville más fuerte.
And once again, Ms. Barasa, what is the early voting dates and the election dates?
April 22nd through April 29th, and election day is May the 3rd.
And do you know what place on the ballot you're in? You know how sometimes they put one,
Yes, my
two, three.
magic number is 3. I
Okay.
am third place on the ballot. I'm running for District 3, and election day is May the 3rd.
All right. Well, we definitely wish you the best of luck, Ms. Barasa. Like I said, you're always welcome to come back at any time, win or lose. Definitely, if you win, you can't expect that I'll bring you back on the show whenever you want. And if you don't win, you can still come on the show whenever you want. So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the time. I know that you've been very busy on your campaign, and I know it takes this probably took a little time from campaigning, but I believe that, like I tell all the other candidates, Channel 5 and Channel 4 are not going to give you the same time I do, and the Brownsville Herald definitely won't give you any time. So I'm your best bet
Exactly.
at this point, and you can come back anytime you want and spend all the
Thank
time
you, Mr. Salinas.
as long as you let me eat dinner afterwards in a timely manner. So. All righty,
Thank
Miss
you.
Barasa.
I
Um,
appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much, and
thank
God
you.
bless you. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.